We already dropped a short for the anniversary of this absolute masterpiece, but man, it just wasn't enough. We had to do it justice with a full-blown video. Let's cut the BS. Today, we're diving into Iron Maiden's Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. Welcome back to the ultimate living room mosh pit. On April 11th, we celebrated the 38th anniversary of this landmark record from '88. Today, we're tearing it apart track by track to see why so many fans call it Maiden's untouchable peak. Think about it. It's 1988, it's their 7th album, and they slap a 7 right in the title. Kinda became a habit for them later on, right? Looking at You, The X Factor, and Virtual 11. But back then, the stakes were different. They were fresh off Somewhere in Time, where they first gambled on guitar synths, and that was just the appetizer. Seventh Son is where they take the massive leap. They ditch the guitar-only limits and fully embrace a massive, orchestral, and progressive sound. And to pull it off, they finally unleash the keyboards. And to forge a sound like that, you gotta go off the grid. They locked themselves in Munich's Musicland Studios for 3 months. And this wasn't just any studio. Rock gods like Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, The Stones, and Queen had all recorded there. The masterstroke? The studio was buried in the basement of the Arabella House Hotel. Total isolation. No London distractions. And definitely no tropical beach vibes like they had at Compass Point in the Bahamas. Down in that bunker, the band and legendary producer Martin Birch got insanely obsessed with the arrangements. Mainly because this was their first, true, and only concept album. The spark hit Steve Harris after reading Orson Scott Card's novel, Seventh Son. He pitches it to Bruce Dickinson, and boom, Bruce's imagination catches fire. He finally starts writing again, which was huge since all his tracks got totally shut down on Somewhere in Time. By the way, Card didn't invent the lore. There's endless spiritual history about the magic, blessings, and curses of being the seventh son of a seventh son. Hell, in Jewish tradition, 7 is the number of perfection and God, the exact opposite of 666, the number of the beast. The concept completely reignites Bruce. He dives headfirst into the visuals with their legendary artist, Derek Riggs. They wanted a surrealist Eddie stranded in a frozen wasteland. A totally fresh color palette, kind of like what they pulled off on Powerslave. Riggs was on a brutal deadline, but he nailed the vibe instantly. The record is moody, focusing on a prophet trapped by fate. So, he decides not to draw a full-body Eddie. He literally chops him in half. The cover is an absolute trip. Right below the ribcage, there's an apple representing the Garden of Eden, topped with a yin-yang. But they're red and green, total opposites on the color spectrum. And the flaming head? Not demonic at all. Riggs was channeling Arthur Brown, the crazy rocker who performed with his head on fire. That flame is pure inspiration. Oh, and in Eddie's hand? A fetus and a placenta. The Seventh Son. Drop the Needle and Moonchild hits you like a freight train. Insane lyrics, heavy on the Aleister Crowley occult vibes, the same guy Ozzy loved to name drop. Bruce purposely mashed up Crowley and Orson Scott Card to create this uneasy, multi-layered trip. Musically, Moonchild was penned by Adrian Smith. But weirdly enough, it sounds exactly like a classic Steve Harris gallop. It just proves the guys were so hyped on making a concept record and leaning into Steve's prog side that they checked their egos at the door to serve the story. And we see the exact reverse on the 4th single, Infinite Dreams. It's credited entirely to Steve Harris, but it sounds like pure Adrian Smith, an absolute monster of a track. Bruce called the intro a dreamy Hendrix-style vibe before those massive power chords explode. But behind the scenes, total chaos with Nico McBrain. He wanted to pound the kit to dust, but the guys forced him to hold back and play a delicate cross-stick groove for 24 bars. The payoff? Arguably the deepest song on the record. Then we hit the mega anthem, the lead single, Can I Play With Madness? It started out as an Adrian Smith demo called On the Wings of Eagles. Steve slaps this weird Zeppelin-style time change right in the middle, and Nico absolutely hated it. Bruce had to play peacemaker just to convince them it worked. Good thing he did, because it smashed its way to number 3 in the UK charts. Plus, the music video is a piece of history. It features the final on-screen appearance of Monty Python's Graham Chapman before he passed away. And again, the lyrics work on 2 levels, the old prophet gazing into his crystal ball, but also a killer anthem for teenage rebellion. Track 5, second single, The Evil That Men Do. Pure, relentless, fist-pumping Maiden designed for the mosh pit. The title gets ripped straight out of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar from 1599. Bruce tells a story of lost innocence. The hero gets seduced by a demonic vision of a woman and is left completely broken and hollow. 3 heavyweights co-wrote that one: Adrian, Steve, and Bruce. They were all pulling in the exact same direction, which brings us to the flip side of the vinyl, the title track. 10 minutes of pure, epic prog metal. To this day, Steve Harris calls it one of his proudest achievements. 3 flawless movements, a galloping charge then, the void, a massive, hypnotic breakdown with spoken word vocals building this insane tension, and then a lightning-fast instrumental shred fest. It's the exact moment heaven and hell are tearing each other apart for the soul of the newborn, who literally holds the keys to life and death. Pure goosebumps. Right on its heels is The Prophecy, a slow, Celtic-tinged march with twin guitar harmonies screaming classic Thin Lizzy. And it's a rare writing credit for Dave Murray. The story follows the 7th son trying to warn his village of impending doom. Nobody listens, the disaster hits, and who takes the blame? Naturally, the prophet. Next up, The Clairvoyant. The 3rd single, and actually the very first track written for the album. Steve got the idea after the famous psychic Doris Stokes died. It made him wonder, if you can see the future, are you blind to your own death? Does fate just blindfold you? That gritty, pulsing bass intro is legendary. Alvin, or Septimus, whatever you want to call him, has to face his curse, trying to separate reality from nightmares. Underneath it all, it's a dark metaphor for coming to terms with death. The closer is absolutely vicious. Only the good die young. A blistering Steve Harris track to crank the BPMs back up after all that deep thinking, drenched in pure nihilism. Bruce spits venom about the cruelty of fate. They flip the old saying on its head: if the good really do die young, then divine justice is a total scam, a brutal head-on attack on religion. But the real stroke of genius? The outro. After the metal madness fades out, the acoustic intro from Moonchild fades right back in. 7 deadly sins, 7 ways to win. The circle is complete. Perfect. To launch this beast of an album, they pulled some crazy stunts. Press junkets inside a German castle, and secret club gigs under the fake name Charlotte and the Harlots at spots like the Empire in Cologne and L'Amour in New York. Then, in May, the 7th tour of a 7th tour kicks off. 2 million fans in just 7 months. The stage design was totally insane. It looked like a massive, frozen wasteland. All white, blue, cold, and sterile, ripped right out of Riggs' artwork. And during the title track, this colossal Eddie bust matching the cover would slowly rise up from behind Nico's drums. The Absolute Summit. August 20th, 1988. Headlining the Monsters of Rock at Donington Park. 107,000 people. An all-time attendance record for Donington. Fun fact, since they were using real keyboards, they dragged Michael Kenny, Steve's bass tech, out on tour. During the title track, he'd play hoisted up in the air on a forklift, wearing a black cape and a mask, calling himself The Count. That legendary run gave us the Maiden England live album, shot in Birmingham. An unbelievable document of the band at their absolute technical peak. We finally got the proper, uncut 5.1 remaster in 2013, bringing tracks like Run to the Hills and Sanctuary back into the set list. But listen up, guys, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. This record actually caused the first real cracks in the band's armor. Over in Europe and the UK, they were untouchable, topping the charts, proving you could be complex and wildly successful at the same time. But in the US, a bit of a train wreck. The American scene was totally dominated by either the glossy hair metal of Guns N' Roses and Poison, or the brutal thrash of Metallica. Maiden's intellectual metal got stuck in the crossfire. No easy gold records and half-empty arenas in the Midwest. Even Steve Harris admitted they were losing the casual fans to grittier bands. Bruce Dickinson took it incredibly hard. He actually viewed the album as a bit of an artistic failure. That same year, he heard Queensryche's Operation, Mindcrime, and it sent him into a dark place. He basically said, "They nailed the perfect concept album, and we only half-assed ours." He hated that they pieced Seventh Son together like Lego blocks, a Harris riff here, a Smith chorus there, instead of writing a unified story from day one. That frustration aided him until he finally quit the band in '93. The rock critics were totally split too. Some said, "They've lost their edge. They just want to be pretentious 70s prog snobs and forgot how to rock." But for the diehards, it was absolute proof that heavy metal could be high art. And looking back almost 40 years later, we know exactly who was on the right side of history. Today, it's universally hailed as their magnum opus, the flawless grand finale to that legendary 7-album run, the absolute pinnacle of their musicianship before the messy 1990s hit. I mean, let's be real, without this record, bands like Dream Theater or Blind Guardian wouldn't have had a snowball's chance in hell. The truth is, that fragile tug-of-war between Steve's prog obsession and Adrian's melodic genius created a magic they could never duplicate. Time proved them right for ignoring the trends. Unrepeatable, because right after this, the wheels fell off. Adrian bails in 1990 because Steve wanted to regress to a raw, stripped-down sound. Janet Gers steps in, but that perfect songwriting chemistry is gone. Sure, the 90s album sold, mostly thanks to Fear of the Dark, but the critical quality took a nosedive. And then Bruce walks away in '93 for a solo career, kicking off the dark ages with Blaze Bayley on vocals. So, Seventh Son really is the final bow of the golden era lineup. You've got Bruce at his theatrical best, Steve acting as the mastermind, Dave and Adrian delivering flawless twin guitar harmonies, and Nico playing out of his mind on odd time signatures. It's the ultimate swan song. They became absolute giants, but they pushed their technical limits so far that the whole thing snapped. Steve tried to put it in reverse, but he broke the toy. We wouldn't hear that level of complexity and ambition again until Bruce and Adrian returned for Brave New World in 2000. A flawless, isolated pearl in their discography. But what do you guys think of this masterpiece? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and always remember, born to lose, live to win.